And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely touch on like, the dangers of like the black magic and like witches and stuff. Like I said about the guy, um, there are people who can dream walk, which they can astral project and go into your dream and they can rape you. And like where you like when I would wake up, I would be in pain.
And this is a very special edition of the Author Lounge because I have some really special guests tonight. And I see my first guest is already sitting here next to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you all. And I'm probably presenting to some, but I'm introducing to others. Author Brandi Wilson. And I'm going to tell you the subject that she's going to be talking about is probably a little bit different from what you've heard in the Author Lounge. But just as I told her, this is a welcoming space. And the fact that she's writing about what she's reaching a very specific audience. And I'm really interested to know how she's gotten started in this and how she's spreading the word about what she's going to be talking about. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Brandi Wilson. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And now I'm really not sure how exactly did we meet.
So, I actually found you on Instagram.
Yes. Okay. So, tell me a bit about the subject. Like I said, it's a little different. And I told you when we were talking before, this is the first time I've actually been able to do an interview like this. And I'm very interested in how you got started and what inspired you to write about this subject.
Well, my book is called The Karmic Life of a Psychic Medium. Okay, and I have it right here. And I got the inspiration. Actually, I went to a psychic a long time ago, and she told me I was going to write a book. And I was like, I don't want to write a book. At that time, I was like, no. And then as my life, as I got older, things like a lot of negative things started happening to me, and I started having
Mm.
these patterns, and I'm like, no, um, these things need to be talked about, like all these different spiritual things that were happening to me. And I felt like, you know, people need to know about my life because I am very unique and very rare. The stuff that has happened to me doesn't happen every day to people. I actually became psychic when I was 21, and I was like in 2007. So I wasn't born psychic. Um,
Okay.
what happened was I met the sister of a famous rapper. So after I met her, she was already intuitive. I don't know if she was psychic, but when I met her, I became psychic.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I was
So
like,
wait, you just now when you say you became psychic, you're not saying that when you met her you found an interest in it. You're saying that when you met her, you became a psychic just like she was a psychic. Is that what you're saying?
so I was already intuitive, but I
Okay.
wasn't psychic at all. Like I was just, pretty normal, I would say. But I was kind of intuitive. Like I believed in like ghosts and angels and things like that. But she was intuitive as well. I don't think she was psychic either.
Mm-hmm.
But like when we were talking, I did notice some strange things that were happening, when I met her because she was working with me. And like maybe a week later, I start like strange things started happening. I started having psychic dreams. Things started moving. I noticed things were moving and like people were calling my name that I didn't know. And like when I would look at them, they wouldn't even, they weren't looking at me. So, I was thinking about how is that even possible? Because usually if someone would have to transfer energy to you, okay,
Right.
in order for you to get like some kind of abilities, but she had no idea that what I was experiencing, that she didn't know what was going on. She was like, she's like, why do you think it has something to do with me? But it did, because it started after I met her. And it keeps progressing, like my ability, it keeps growing and it never stopped. And it's just very rare, because if someone did transfer energy, it's temporary. It doesn't last like for your whole life.
Right, right. Wow. So, was that kind of unnerving to realize that you had this ability at first?
Well, yes, I was scared, because I didn't know I was a psychic. I didn't know I was a medium. I just know I started seeing ghosts and dead people. And I was just like, there's like some strange stuff going on. And then at the same time, you know, the girl that I was friends with, she had her own stuff going on. It was like a weird thing that happened, because like she was only there for like 3 months, but like after she left, things just started continuing. So yes, I was scared at first, and I was just confused because I didn't know where this was coming from.
So, how did you start to get more comfortable in your ability?
It took years. It took a long time for me to accept the fact that I was psychic and that I was a medium, and accept the spiritual world. Because on a daily basis, I was seeing demons, I was seeing angels, I was seeing um, people who passed on, and it was like I was living in a spiritual world. I
Hmm.
wasn't living in a physical, because that's all I seen, because I wasn't around a lot of people all the time. It was mostly, I would sit in my room and there was a bunch of dead people just hanging out.
Wow.
Yeah. So it took me a while to get used to that.
Well, I'm quite sure that would take a while for anybody to get used to.
Hmm.
And you had to get kind of comfortable with seeing these spirits in the room with you, or them being in your life and probably speaking to you.
Yes. And then I also discuss in my book how I met a male witch who I was introduced to him, by someone I thought was my friend. And, me and this guy, we got into it, and he ended up, he would come into my dreams and harass and stalk me every night for like 2 years. And he was raping me in my dreams as well.
So, is this something that you mentioned that you talk a little bit about this in your book? Is
Yes.
your book more memoir, or is it more of a help, like a self? I don't want to say self help, but is it a book where you're teaching people who may be in this realm, newly in this realm, and not knowing how to deal with it, because you had to learn how to deal with this almost by yourself?
Right. It's a memoir. And I just discuss, everything that happened to me when I first became psychic, and what happened after that. That's why it's such a long book. Um,
It
and
is a pretty long book. How many pages is it?
I think it's like 362.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long book, but I feel like these things are happening to other people and they're afraid to talk about it. Um, I've talked to another woman who said she had sex with a demon too. Like, there's people that experience this stuff, and they, especially like in the Black community, like we don't tell people, because maybe we, how we look. But I have always been open about um the things that happen to me, because I'm surprised as well. I'm confused as well. Like, wow, this is this is crazy stuff.
Mm,
There's witches who can do that, and it's just like, just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean it's not real, and it doesn't mean it can't happen to you.
right. Totally understand.
And you
Um,
never know who's a witch. They're everywhere. They're in your neighborhoods, and you can get into an argument with someone, and then the next thing you know, they're trying to kill you spiritually. And that's how a lot of things go undetected, because harm is being done spiritually,
Hmm.
and there's no way to like get proof. There's no way to get help, really, you know.
Wow. So I'm how do you put that into words? Because it's, I mean, you're doing great talking about it, but how do you write this down so the people you're trying to reach are able to understand this? Because as we mentioned a little earlier, there are people who may be going through this and not realizing that they're going through it, or
Hmm.
some people who are maybe new to this ability just like you were, and they don't fully understand it. They don't know how to deal with it. They haven't learned to live with it yet. So how do you write this down to where they can truly understand this?
I think after they read my book, like if they are spiritual and intuitive, they can relate to some of the stuff, and maybe they can understand why certain things are happening to them.
Hmm.
Because when we talk about the spiritual realm, sometimes we don't know why something's happening, and sometimes we may never get the answer. Like there's no answer to how I became psychic just because I met this girl that was related to a rapper. Like there's no,
Right.
it doesn't make sense. And the nightmares I was having they weren't no joke, because if you've ever seen a demon before, they are not they look scary. They look
Yeah,
scary
I'm
as
sure.
hell.
I
Okay. And
mean,
that's what
I don't know if I've seen one, but just to picture one is scary to me.
Yeah, and they be trying to kill you too. So it's not like they're just around. They be trying to harm you. They're trying to, in some cases they try to kill you, take you out. And that's why they're there. So this is like no joke. There's definitely the war still going on, good versus evil. So, I try to stay on the good side, because I done had a wild ride, and
Mm.
I don't want no smoke.